It doesn't happen that often that I see something that I'm completely unaware of. Let's take a look at the most exotic historical weapons at the Royal Armouries in Leeds. I noticed that I still have some unused footage from 2024. That was such a great visit. It's always fascinating to look at weapons from India because to modern Western eyes, they just look like they came straight out of the mind of a fantasy writer. Like the Madhu, for example. And that's definitely not one of the strangest ones. So you have the dual horns there, just the horns themselves. And this one has the buckler attached to it as well. And both have steel pointed ends. And then we've got this Madhu here, which is quite interesting. I don't think I've seen this form before. So it's almost a sort of knuckle duster with 2 blades, one on each end. This one is also quite interesting because the handle is very different from what you would normally see on daggers. I think you probably just slip it over your hand and kind of wear it that way so you can still hold on to something else, and it might have been combined with another weapon that you hold in the same hand, but I don't know for sure. Now this is where it gets even more unusual. This sword right here, 18th century, late 18th century. I've never really seen this kind of sword before. It is extremely unusual for a two-handed sword. Again, you know, from a Western perspective, at least, because this kind of hilt here I would normally expect from a polearm or maybe even a lance. In fact, it looks, if you only saw this side from this perspective, you might think it is a lance. So the handle appears to be round. Personally, I would hate that in practical terms, but I suppose they didn't mind. And then there is this additional handle here. I suppose one hand there and one hand fairly high up here. Also worth noting, it looks like 2 separate pieces were joined together there. Perhaps forge welded. Maybe the blade broke at some point or was extended. Now, I've been told by a blacksmith that forge welding a blade together from 2 pieces is not a good idea and probably won't last long. And maybe I'm misinterpreting what I'm seeing there, but that's just what this area looks like to me. These are about the strangest axes you will find from the 19th century. And they would be absolutely right at home in not even just fantasy, but perhaps even science fiction settings. This one looks kind of sci-fi, doesn't it? 4-bladed axe. Or 4-pronged, you could even say, perhaps. And with pretty thin blades, so they look absolutely functional. Nothing wrong with the haft either, other than the fact that, to me, the haft seems rather thin. But yeah, sometimes reality is just about as strange as fiction, if not more so. The most beautiful example of these I've found is showcased on Mandarin Mansion, which I'll link in the description below. The craftsmanship is remarkable, and it looks like quite an effective blade shape too. That double recurve blade would produce a strong slicing action. I wonder if this dagger was ever used. Doesn't look like it's intended for use. Really quite uncomfortable to hold on to, I think, even with gloves. Interesting shape, though. Okay, I don't even know what to say about this. A sword with attached katar and also combination percussion pistol. About 1850. But that's not even the strange thing. The strangest is that right there. A combination 2-handed sword and pistol. So you see the flintlock mechanism there, and the handle is the barrel. So if you were to swing this sword around, you would keep swiping your own legs with the barrel. I don't know how I feel about that. There's a baknak. So these you would slip your fingers through and then hold the claws concealed on the inside of your hand. This is such an interesting axe shape because it looks more like a glaive almost, just scaled down, much smaller. Early 19th century. Yes, India has definitely been inventive with arms and armor. These are quite characteristic. You don't normally see maces with sword-like hilts. I've seen quite a few of these. The flange mace looks mean, by the way. Oh, it's supposed to. It doesn't happen that often that I see something that I'm completely unaware of. Tusk swords? Probably 16th century India. These are also called elephant swords because they were wielded, if you will, by war elephants. Slipped over shortened tusks and wrapped to secure them. Don't you shudder to imagine how devastating those would have been? Looks like borderline war crime material to me. These are massive. It's like a cannon barrel, essentially. And the blades look more like guitar blades, except they're just larger and broader. Wow. Surviving tusk swords are extremely rare, yeah, I bet. Knuckle dusters. I don't think I've seen that type. In the 19th century. They're not a pair. Okay, you would not guess. They absolutely look... Okay, upon closer look you can see that there's a bit of a difference. But they could as well be matched, the way they look. I do not know what that is. Looks like a giant brass sphere mounted to a pole. I can only guess it's ceremonial, and I would also guess that the sphere is probably hollow. I'm not seeing a description for that one. And yeah, in terms of what looks like fantasy, this one in particular, right there, is quite odd. I mean, it looks cool. This could definitely be in a game or some fantasy setting somewhere. There are some spears with hooks. That makes sense for controlling enemy weapons and limbs and all of that. Here we've got hook swords. Apparently pattern welded steel. And there's clearly some ceremonial designs up there. Now, I think the most fascinating one in this lineup here is there. Apparently, these claws fold out. That's just quite something. So a foldable claw mace.
It's called an eagle talon cudgel.
An eagle talon cudgel. Okay, from the 19th century. Also called chicken foot cudgel with hinged claws. The back scratcher of doom. Supposedly used to catch someone's clothing. I feel like it would do a little more than that. And then that axe there is from the 19th century. Very unusual shape as well, at least to my eyes. And then we have a flail from the 19th century. That looks pleasant. It's pretty small, but that would be effective, no doubt. There's another gun blade. Definitely a different kind of shape. This looks really, you can easily ignore the blade and just see it as a pistol. So this is an example of a combination sword and gun that's really more gun first and foremost, with the sword blade attached to it. Some are really more swords with attached guns. There's a centerfire shooting cane. I think I've shown pictures of those before. People always find a way. A walking stick revolver and dagger. air cane. Wow. So, an air pistol from 1860 to 70. Concealed as a cane. That's interesting. There we've got one of the Apache revolvers, so named after a French gang. There was also the fascinating extending rapier, but I've already covered it in its own video. Link below if you haven't seen it. Let me know what you think about all these. Hope you found it interesting, and thanks for watching.